My name is Commander Elias Carter, and I was part of the first manned expedition to Kepler 442b, a planet astronomers once called Earth's twin. We were supposed to be the first humans to set foot on an alien world outside our solar system. But that was a lie. The mission started like any other deep space exploration. Training, simulations, endless briefings. Our crew of 6, 3 scientists, 2 engineers, and myself as mission commander, was chosen to survey the planet for potential colonization. It had an oxygen-rich atmosphere, liquid water, and an environment eerily similar to Earth's. In theory, it was perfect. When we landed, we expected wilderness. Instead, we found ruins. The first structure we saw was a towering obelisk, half buried in alien soil. It was smooth, black as obsidian, covered in glyphs that glowed faintly under our helmet lights. At first, we thought it was natural, maybe volcanic glass shaped by ancient forces. But then Dr. Patel, our archaeologist, ran her gloved fingers over the carvings and froze. "This isn't alien," she whispered. "This is Sumerian." I thought she was joking. Sumerian? The first known human civilization. It was impossible. We were light years from Earth, standing before a structure that shouldn't exist. The more we explored, the worse it got. Scattered across the valley were ruins unmistakably human. Stone roads, remnants of buildings, even what looked like an amphitheater. They were ancient, eroded by time, but they followed architectural styles eerily similar to those found in Mesopotamia and Egypt. "We aren't the first ones here," muttered Lieutenant Hayes, our geologist. "Hell, we aren't even the second." That's when we found the bodies. They were buried in the dust, exposed by the shifting winds. Skeletal figures, humanoid but wrong. The proportions were too perfect. Taller than us, elongated limbs, skulls slightly larger than a normal human's. Their bones were strange, denser than any we'd ever seen, as if evolved for a different gravity. Dr. Patel's voice crackled in my earpiece. "Commander, these aren't just human-like. They are human." I looked down at the empty eye sockets of a creature that had died long before our history began. Its fingers still curled around an ancient metal tool. My stomach twisted. We had come searching for alien life. Instead, we had found our own past. We set up camp near the ruins, our minds reeling. If humans had been here before, where did they come from? More importantly, where did they go? That night, while reviewing the drone scans, Dr. Lee, our astrophysicist, made a chilling discovery. The structures weren't just old, they predated Earth itself. "The carbon dating," she said, voice shaking. "These ruins are over 2 billion years old. No civilization on Earth had existed that long ago. No human had walked anywhere but our planet. And yet, here they were, bones, tools, entire cities lost to time." Then the signal came, a faint transmission, barely decipherable, broadcasted from deep beneath the surface. A voice, speaking in perfect, archaic Sumerian, said one thing: "You were never meant to return." I didn't sleep that night. None of us did. The signal played over and over, a ghostly whisper in a dead language. Dr. Patel confirmed the translation. "You were never meant to return." But return where? To Earth? To this planet? The message made no sense, but we all felt it. Something was wrong. At dawn, we followed the signal to its source. The ruins led us to a massive stone structure, part temple, part bunker, built directly into the mountainside. Its entrance had been sealed long ago, but time and erosion had cracked it open just enough for us to squeeze through. Inside, the air was stale, untouched for what felt like eternity. Our helmet lights cut through the darkness, revealing walls covered in carvings, murals depicting tall, elongated humans surrounded by stars, planets, and strange symbols. They weren't just explorers. They were fleeing something. The deeper we went, the more the murals told us. Dr. Patel studied them, piecing together a forgotten history. The first image showed a lush planet, this planet covered in towering cities, advanced beyond anything we had ever seen. The second showed something darker. Strange, shifting shadows falling from the sky, swallowing entire cities whole. The third showed humans, our ancestors, leaving the planet in massive ships, escaping into the void. The final image was the worst. A single monstrous figure stood among ruins, eyes hollow and black, with clawed hands stretched toward the sky. A warning was carved beneath it, etched so deeply it had cracked the stone. Dr. Patel's voice wavered as she read it aloud. "The Devourer waits." A chill crawled down my spine. "This is insane," Hayes muttered. "Are we saying humans didn't evolve on Earth? That we came from here?" "No," Dr. Lee whispered. "We're saying we ran from here." The signal was coming from beneath us. We followed it deeper, down crumbling staircases and tunnels older than human memory. The deeper we went, the colder it got. A thick, unnatural frost clung to the walls, our breath turning to mist despite our suit's temperature control. Then we found the bodies. Not skeletal remains this time. Preserved corpses, frozen in place, expressions twisted in terror. They had died running, some clawing at the walls, others clutching strange devices that had long since lost power. And in the center of the room, half buried in frost and dust, was a massive door. It wasn't made of stone like the rest of the ruins. It was metal, sealed. The signal was coming from inside. Dr. Lee hesitated. "Maybe we shouldn't." Too late. Hayes was already brushing the frost away, revealing a single inscription in Sumerian. "Do not wake the last king." That's when the ground shook. Something was still alive down here. The ground rumbled beneath us, a deep, guttural tremor that shook the ancient walls. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Something was shifting on the other side of the metal door. We froze. Our training screamed at us to retreat, to seal this place and never return. But the signal, the voice, it had called us here. Hayes, our geologist, took a shaky breath. "Commander, we need to leave." Dr. Patel swallowed hard. "We need to understand." I was torn between both choices, but in the end, it didn't matter. The door began to open on its own. A hiss of escaping air filled the chamber as ancient mechanisms groaned to life. The frost cracked and split, falling away in chunks. The metal door slid back, revealing a darkness so deep, so absolute, that it swallowed our helmet lights whole. Then something stepped forward. A figure, tall and thin, with elongated limbs and smooth, pale skin that seemed untouched by time. Its face was almost human, almost. The eyes were too large, too black, and when they locked onto us, I felt something crawl into my skull. Not fear, not panic, recognition. This thing, it knew us. It opened its mouth, but the words didn't come from its lips. They echoed in our heads, a whisper that carried across time itself. "You should not have returned." Dr. Patel gasped. "It's alive, my God, it's alive." The being took another step, and we saw the symbols on its skin, etched directly into its flesh, pulsing with a dim blue glow. The same glyphs that covered the ruins, the same ones we had found carved into the obelisk. It had been waiting for us. And then, through the haze of my own horror, I understood. This was the last of them, the final ruler of a dead empire. A king who had survived while the rest of his kind fled into the stars, into history, into Earth. The murals weren't warnings about something coming. They were warnings about us. We weren't Earth's first civilization. We weren't even its rightful inhabitants. We were the refugees, the descendants of a race that had fled its dying world, leaving something behind, something that had never stopped waiting. The creature's voice slithered through our minds. The cycle begins anew. Behind it, the darkness moved. Shapes stirred in the blackness. Figures rising from their slumber. Skeletal forms wrapped in brittle, leathery flesh. Their eyes burned with cold blue fire. And as they took their first steps in eons, we heard it. The sound of hunger. They had been waiting for us to return. We ran. The ground cracked beneath our feet. The ruins trembling as something far greater than we could comprehend stirred beneath the planet's surface. The voices in our heads grew louder, screaming in languages we had never heard but somehow understood. We barely made it back to the surface. The ship was already prepping for emergency departure, alerted by the seismic activity. Hayes was the last one through the airlock, panting, face pale as he turned back to look at the ruins one last time. "They let us go," he whispered. "Why?" I already knew the answer. We weren't the first humans to return, and we wouldn't be the last. As the ship pulled away from Kepler for 42b, I watched through the viewport as the ruins crumbled into the dust, swallowed by the shifting landscape. The last thing I saw was the obelisk, the one covered in Sumerian script, standing tall among the wreckage. The glowing text changed before my eyes, shifting into something new. One final warning: run. Then the transmission cut out, and somewhere, deep beneath that ancient world, something smiled.